Okay, next up in the modulators, last up in the modulators is the shaper. This is a lot like the LFO. Let's put it on this synth that definitely needs some work, right? So what we're going to do here is we have an LFO, but we have a lot more control over the shape of the LFO, right? So this kind of shows you what the output is going to be doing. Right? We've got some shapes here that we can play with, but we can adjust all of them as we want. So I want something that kind of calms this thing down a little bit. So shaper is kind of the wrong way to do this, but let's do it anyway. Let's try this. Now, one interesting thing to note is that these are not exactly audio effects and not exactly MIDI effects, right? Because I have the shaper on here, and if I hit play, it's really just going to pass right through it, right? Turn it off, turn it on. It's not doing anything because this needs to be mapped to something. Audio is going to pass right through it. This is a parameter controlled thing. So, oops, let's turn that back on. Turn this back on. And let's map it to something. So let's try mapping it to our auto filter rate. This is going to get kind of weird. That's kind of neat, actually. Let's slow it down a little bit. I kind of like it. Let's hear it in context. Okay, so what we did here is we just kind of drew the shape that we wanted. We adjusted the rate. We didn't adjust the depth, although we could, but I wanted it to be pretty intense. And then we mapped it to the rate. We could map it to something else as well, and all of these modulators have this little button here that'll let us map it to several things. So let's map the same parameter to the filter cutoff. All right, so now you can see those are working kind of in unison. Let's hear now. Okay, and let's map it to this reverb, but let's do it opposite. So we're going to go 100, 0 here. So I'm going to invert the values so that reverb goes up. And just to make sure we get that really craziness thing, I'm going to make sure the filter cutoff doesn't actually get to 0. So now I've made like kind of an interesting effect with the shaper. Really fun things you can do with any and all of these modulators.